The Indie Writers Club is brought to you by Publish Drive. With one click, self-publish your ebooks, audiobooks and print books to thousands of stores and libraries worldwide. And now you can start for free forever. Publish Drive's new free plan lets you publish your first ebook to 35 stores worldwide absolutely free. No subscription fees, no commissions. Keep 100% of the royalties. Get your titles online in just a few minutes at publishdrive.com.
It's the Indie Writers Club with Cara Clare and James Blatch. A place to relax, chat, learn and vent about life as an independent author. Get episode alerts and links at indiewritersclub.com. Now, here's Cara and James.
Welcome to the Indie Writers Club. I am Cara Clare.
And I am James Blatch. How are you, Cara Clare?
Good, yeah. I was just saying it's so nice to see you because we were together for nearly a whole week last week in Ireland, and
we were like an old married couple, weren't we, last week?
Well, everywhere I went, people said to me, "Are you looking for James?" And I was like, "No, just going about my business."
We were in a throuple because we have Robin Bennett.
We do, yeah.
With us as well, he's like the third wheel in the background.
We were representing the Cambridge authors.
Yeah.
We did have a couple of others there, didn't we? Susie Quinn was there. Stuart Grant, who's not technically a Cambridge author, but he's close enough to be included.
Yes. Yeah, a few people. And I think there's going to be a few more people there next year because I think what happened this year is people weren't really sure. They hadn't heard of it. Wasn't on the radar, wasn't in the calendar. We all went, loved it. And I will say unequivocally, I thought it was a fantastic conference. We'll talk about why in a second. We all posted our pictures, which looked amazing because the weather really, really helped.
It did,
the organisers. It was lovely.
We were so lucky. The first day was a bit typical Ireland, wasn't it? Very windy and grey. But the second day, the sun came out and it was just glorious.
It was really lovely. And so I think a lot of people, in fact, I've had people saying to me, I'll be, very early to sign up when it's dates are released. So we've had, as attendees, we've had a chance to sign up. I signed up straight away. In fact, it was straight away because I got an immediate message from Siobhan saying, "You're first." I was like,
were you
literally,
the first? Do you get a prize?
First person. I should get a prize.
Yeah, I'm 100%. I'm signing up for next year. We'll talk about that, won't we? We're going to go through kind of some of the things that we learned and what was so good about this show, actually, because I think it's interesting to try and think about, well, what did make it a success? What was good about this one in particular?
Yeah, well, so we'll talk about that. We've got a couple of other things to talk about before then.
Uh-huh.
One of them is the Meta situation. So this is Facebook ads. Facebook.
Yeah, it sort of kicked off on the way back. We were literally at the airport, weren't we? And James was delaying us looking at a little plane exhibition, exhibition.
A little plane exhibition, the world's largest collection of model aircraft. It's not little.
James was looking at the world's largest collection of model aircraft in Shannon Airport, and Robin and I were getting a bit twitchy and kind of like, we've actually got a plane to catch, James. But then I started getting notifications pinging through on my phone. So if you haven't heard, I think the gist of what happened is that Meta has used LibGen, which is one of the notorious piracy databases, to basically download authors' work and to train their AI language model. And I think the nub of it, there are ethical questions. So there's one side of it, which is the thing that we debate quite often, which is whether we should be using authors' work to learn from, how we should be using generative AI. But the main thing, the kind of main legal thing, is that they literally used a pirate database of books and downloaded them, and allegedly, they've got internal communications from people at Meta saying, it feels a bit wrong to be downloading pirated stuff on a work laptop, and just saying, we'll get on with it because it's going to cost us a fortune if we have to pay for them all.
Yeah.
So I think that is most authors, that's their kind of main gripe is, I checked, and there is a link. If you Google this, you'll find it. There's a link so you can go and check whether your books were used. I would recommend doing that and just taking a screenshot, because there's probably going to be a class action lawsuit of some kind, and just take the screenshot to show whether yours were there or not. All of mine were there. I believe all of yours were there.
Yeah. Two of my free novella weirdly wasn't there. So I'm wondering whether it's a KU linked thing, because my novella's not in KU. But anyway, I don't know.
I don't think so, because there's trad authors. There's, Emma Donoghue, who wrote A Room. She said 90 of her books, all translations, everything. So
well,
I think
that's a good point. I didn't check for my translations. Let me check that whilst I'm here.
That's the main thing that people are saying is, look, regardless of anything else, of whether we think we should be using generative AI to help us write, but anything like that, the fact is, you've not paid for them and you've used them. And so, Mark Zuckerberg owes me something like £56 if he'd bought them all, or probably about £12 if he'd read them in KU.
Yeah. So I think that's the thing that's annoying here. And I'm quite sanguine about this. I'm not quite at Elizabeth Ann West levels. Elizabeth Ann West is a thought leader of AI in our author community, and she's very pro AI, and she takes the view, in the early days of Google, it scraped the entire internet without asking everybody's copyrighted material, everything, to build one of the world's most useful search engines that we have embedded into our daily life. So she takes the view, have my books, because I will benefit, humanity will benefit from the intelligence that arises from this. So whether I'm there or not, I don't know, because I think there should be, because I think my problem here is this is a big commercial organization. Meta is a publicly traded, huge profit-making organization, and their AI will be competing, or their use of AI will be used competitively in a commercial environment. So that, for me, suggests that they should pay to build it, and they should pay the authors, even as a minimum, as you say, Cara, pay us for the bloody cover price of the books that you've read.
Exactly. That's my kind of, I'm still very much kind of navigating how I feel about AI, and I think it'll evolve because the situation evolves continually. But definitely, it's the fact that they so openly discussed, should we pay for these? No, it'll take too long. It'll cost us a fortune. Let's use a pirate site, which, we've been trying to take down, or authors have been trying to get taken down and get their books removed from for years. Because, I had a situation where I was in KU, and I think Amazon owed me about £30,000 at the time, and I nearly lost my account because my books were on a pirate site. So it's also the fact that by using it, it's perpetuating the use of pirate sites. So that's kind of my issue. And Richard Osmond had made a statement where he said, look, it's quite simple. If you've used copyright material and you haven't asked to use it, that's a problem.
Yeah.
Which is the case. They didn't ask permission and they didn't pay for it. So just go on Google it, find a link, take a little screenshot if your books have been included, and just keep an eye. There's nothing we can do about it at this point, but it's worth keeping an eye on what happens if there is a lawsuit against them.
Yeah, so I think it's theatlantic.com. It has the search tool, but I'll include the link in the show notes so people can go and check if their books are there. So we'll find out what's going to happen about this class action lawsuit. And this time next year, we'll all be millionaires because Meta will pay us all $1 million each for using our books without permission, I suspect. Or maybe $25. Okay, look, the other thing we want to talk about, we mentioned the Bill Bryson. Bill Bryson episode got a lot of feedback. I got a lot of DMs, got a lot of comments on YouTube about it, and generally very supportive of our view, which is basically that, of course, self-publishing, there's no need to be snobby about it. It's an empowering and exciting thing, and it's a particularly impressive movement for readers, which we talked about. And actually, there's now been a bit of mainstream attention, sort of riposts to Bill Bryson, which has been quite pleasing.
We started this. In my head, we started it.
I mean, there's an article in The Guardian in the UK that's basically word for word what we said on our podcast. Not to say that, they listened to it, but they didn't quote us, which is a shame. But yes, but that's good though, isn't it? It's good that mainstream media, even though, I mean, I was reading it thinking, but it's so out of date. We had these conversations 10 years ago. And now mainstream media is catching up to the fact, hang on, self-publishers shouldn't be too disparaged. But actually, the article itself makes that point. It says Bill Bryson's conversation is 10 years out of date.
Yeah, and it makes the point that there are a lot of self-published authors making millions who you've never heard of. Yeah. Unfortunately, it doesn't actually quote like any of those authors or make the effort to go to speak to them. Because there's quite a lot of us who they could have quite easily tracked down and
come to us. Come to me,
got a little soundbite from.
I can't remember his name. I should email him. He should come to me, Richard Godwin, and I'll give you the names of 5 authors who are making 7 figures.
Yeah, you should email him and say, in future, when you want to do anything about self-publishing, come to us, and if we can't answer your questions, we'll at least point you in the direction of some authors.
I'll drop him an email with the names of 5 authors, or I think he should speak to next time he does an article, and he wants a quote from people who are making that kind of money. And I could do the introductions for him.
Good idea.
So, yeah, that was good. I'll put those links again to our show notes as well, so you can read those articles as well. The Times newspaper also did a very similar article on Sunday Times, I think it was, sort of defending and celebrating self-publishing, which I think actually we should just note, because mainstream media, I've always said this, mainstream media and traditional publishing are very closely aligned. The people who work in newsrooms basically all have a novel in them, and they know people in publishing, and self-publishing's therefore never had the oxygen that it needs to come to the fore and become a trendy thing in the way that, say, indie music did a few years ago, and indie filmmaking has right from the beginning. So I think we've always been a little bit, I hate to say conspiratorial here, but a little bit suppressed deliberately because it doesn't suit the traditional publishing industry. But that seems to be changing now.
It was nice to see it getting some attention back, and nice to see that we weren't just being a little bit sensitive either, that we weren't just being a little bit like, oh, they were mean about us. There's like, actually quite a few people have noticed, not just us.
And I should also go back to the point I made. To be fair to Bill Bryson, is he may have just said two things in an hour and a half long talk about publishing, and be very kind of genuinely, I wonder if there's too many books out, and that gets blown into all this. So I don't really know, but there's a possibility that's happened as well. So, but he hasn't said anything to correct it, as far as I've seen.
No, that's true. No, I haven't seen anything either.
Okay, let's talk about Ireland's publishing show, which was the inaugural event this year. Took place on the Wild Atlantic Way. Is that what it's called? Wild Atlantic Way? On the coast Wild Atlantic Way, which is on the west coast of Ireland, so facing out across the Atlantic towards America. Rugged, green, cliffy. We flew into Shannon Airport, which was a new airport for me, which was famous in the 1960s as being the home of duty free. Duty free was invented there. It's a pretty good
airport, actually.
And in the old days, it was the first landing point for the British Isles because people landed there to refuel. So the black and white pictures are people like Bing Crosby and Frank Sinatra and Gene Kelly, all getting off their planes there because everyone's been through Shannon in that period in the 50s and 60s. The actual conference took place in a modernish hotel, but just on the edge of the estate of a stunning castle estate called Dromoland. I can never say it properly.
Dromoland.
Yeah, Dromoland. It's spelled Dromoland. We might say Dromoland, but the Irish pronounce it Dromoland.
Come on, get your Irish accent on.
Yeah, no, I'm not
trying not to do it.
Oh, God. I mean, I have to say we were... I've been to Dublin several times. I've been to Belfast several times. I've never really been out into the countryside. And I've got to be careful how I say this, but, there's a kind of cliche view of Ireland from Father Ted and stuff like that, which I completely understand is, just cartoonish and satirical. I have to say there were strong elements of that on view to us. So, and it was lovely and it was wonderful, but characters sort of just wander up to you and start talking.
Yeah,
so
it was
quickly,
amazing.
You can't hear them say, "Well, where are you from?" Cambridge. Yes, lovely place in Cambridge. I went to JFK Airport in New York once and I met JFK himself, and they're thinking, what is going on here in this conversation? Wild ginger hair one woman had, didn't she?
Yeah. And I should say the Irish people that we were with were also very aware of the fact. They were like, we're basically giving you all the stereotypes here. You're getting to experience.
But they also said this is a very typical experience for village in that part of the world. And, that one, a wonderful warm feeling, I will say. The hospitality, I think the service and the hospitality we received, particularly at the castle, Robin and I went off and played golf there, was probably the best I've had in Europe. I mean, it was so warm, so effusive. When we turned up, we paid €70 for a round of golf. Now, that's for a big, really, really nice golf course, like a championship golf course. That's not that much. I've paid hundreds of dollars for rounds of golf in golf courses, not quite as good as that in America. If you want to play Pebble Beach for it, $600. So €70 is more than average, but my local golf course, I think, is £40, so it's not that far off. So it wasn't hugely expensive. When we got there, we were renting clubs. He gave us 2 brass plaques each with our names engraved on them to go onto our rental bags, which I've still got. And obviously, I'll put onto my actual golf bag. He gave us all the bits and pieces and talked to us. And, instead of just that feeling, golf's a bit like any other sport. You can be a bit disappointing going to a pro shop in a course where they go, what do you want? Oh, yeah, you want that? Sir? And then you kind of walk out and think, okay, we'll play golf now. Even in America, that sometimes happens. But in Ireland, honestly, the conversations that took place, he walked out to the greens with us, talked to us a bit about the course. And then when we finished, he was really disappointed that we weren't going to be able to come back because of this damn conference. He said, well, you need to find some time. And I loved it. And that was all the way through, every pub, every restaurant. I just think...
Even the security at the airport, we were all very confused because on the way home, the man, we were like, hang on, you're smiling and being polite. All the British people were very confused.
Well, that's because he did say 3 times in a row, don't take anything out of your bags And I said laptops. He said, no, nothing out of the bag. And then Robin said, what about laptops? And the guy
And I
said,
was like, what about
well,
liquids though?
so that became a bit of a joke. And normally you don't joke with security people. We kept saying they're laptops. So once I've got the laptop out of my bag, no, don't take the laptop out of your bag. But I've got it out of my bag now. But yeah, you don't joke in any other country with security. But that was so. I mean, it's not just a cliche about the kind of warm hospitality. It was amazing, and I would strongly advise anyone just to go there on holiday. And it did quite a lot of Irish tourism with us, didn't it? As well as the conference.
Did, yeah.
So the conference is in this hotel on the edge of the estate. Not that I tried, but you can't easily walk out to anywhere. You can get an Uber into
No.
local villages and towns. But that was a good thing because you had this campus feel then that everybody was in the building all the time. And after the sessions, the bar filled up with us all around various tables in groups. And that, to me, felt like NINC. These conferences that take place in a small venue that everyone stays around, and not so much Author Nation, which has its own benefits as a conference, huge benefits as a conference. I always advise people going there, particularly at the beginning of their careers. But it's struggling, I think, to get that kind of collegiate feel, that, I don't know, that sort of society feel. But Ireland had that in spades.
Yeah, because you're, like you said, because you're in one location, people can't easily go off for their own dinners. And should say as well, there was a lot of food and stuff included in the event. So we had nibbles and drinks on the first night. We had lunch every day included in the ticket price, and a dinner as well. So we didn't need to go. And there was also the sort of built-in kind of pub at the hotel, and there was lots of really good sort of sitting areas. The bar itself was big enough and had lots of tables, so we worked in the bar for a couple of hours one day. And then there was also the lounge, which was close to one of the rooms where the speakers were doing their thing. So it was just a really great setup, and it really did feel like you got to speak to most people there and actually have some really meaningful conversations with most of the people there, which is hard at the bigger events, like you say. And that's the kind of, I didn't go to Seville, or I haven't been to the one in Seville, but that's similar to the feedback that I've heard from the smaller conferences like Seville.
Yeah. So yeah, I really liked it. And we'll talk about the sessions in a moment, but I think it is value for money as well. It was incredible value for money, actually, considering, as you say, the food you get in. So we got, obviously the room, your bed and breakfast is on top of the conference fee. And I think with the discount rate, it was €150 a night for bed and breakfast. And we spent 3 nights there. So you've got that on top. But the conference fee itself, which I think they'll probably do an early fee of around €200, included lunch, dinner, snack. Every time we gathered in the evening, there seemed to be trays of really delicious food coming out. So that was a lot of bang for your buck. I have to tell you, as somebody who's organised a few conferences, that catering normally is thousands, and it starts to become really prohibitive, and you sit there slightly depressed 6 months out saying we can't afford to give people sandwiches because it's just going to be thousands more. But in Ireland, at that hotel, they did a great job of providing really good quality food for, I think, a very good price. Must have been.
I agree. And because it's really close proximity to the airport too, so you can easily get a cab. You can get Ubers and things if you wanted to go further, but also because of its proximity to the castle, there was a little gate. Pretty much every day we went for a walk around the castle, so you are able to get out and get some fresh air. You're not just stuck in the hotel. That you could, even if all you did was walk out into the car park, you could see the golf course, and in the distance you could see the beach and things. So
Yeah.
In terms of value for money and just the atmosphere, I think it was fantastic.
Yeah, thoroughly recommend it. Definitely going to go next year. Already bought my ticket. And those walks in the morning, by the way, were just the best bit, because it's early
I
in the
didn't
morning.
make any of those.
There was mist over the lakes. It's very still, blue sky, sun rising, deer, beautiful deer running through the woods there. It was quite magical. Okay, well, let's talk about what we learned in the sessions. Yeah. And they had 2 tracks, so a big room and a small room. You and I recorded an episode of the podcast. I don't know if it's going to make it to air because unfortunately, the sound recording didn't quite work on it, but I'm working on it. We may get it out. We'll see. But I also presented on the kind of book packaging thing, which I've talked on this podcast about. We did episodes 7 and 8, I think it is.
And I did a panel on writing in a series, which was with Sarah Noffke, Pauline Cross, and I dragged Adam Beswick onto the panel. He wasn't meant to be on it, but he made the mistake of sitting in the front row to support me.
And he
And
says, come on.
Siobhan, who organised the conference, caught me saying, "Why are you sitting there instead of on the panel?" And she went, "That's a great idea. Adam, do you want to go on the panel?" And he sort of went, but that was a really great one. And I think what was also really great is that they've got a private group, Facebook group for people who attended the conference, where they were live streaming and then saving the recordings of the session that was in the other room. So if there was ever a clash and you weren't sure which one to go to, you didn't need to worry about it because you could just catch it later in the Facebook group.
Yeah.
So I thought that was really clever. The first day I didn't go to a lot of talks because I had a couple of meetings and I was sort of in that, like, I think when you've been to a lot of these things, you kind of get to know which talk's going to be useful for you or not. But then the second day, I found the panel that I did really useful, actually,
Yeah.
because and I think we were saying we might do a whole episode on this, actually, because the craft element of writing in a series, it's one of those things I haven't engaged my brain in for a while. And it's only when people start asking you questions about it, it makes you kind of go back and think, oh yeah, how did I do that? Maybe that's something I really need to remember to think about with my next series. And then I went to two fantastic talks in the afternoon, which were both kind of marketing related. And those two have already impacted what I've done kind of coming away from the conference.
Yeah. Yeah, we should definitely do the serials thing, especially as my new book is going to be hopefully at least a trilogy of stories from this one character. For the first time, probably going in sequence. My books, I seem to write all over the place time-wise.
Yeah, and it was interesting because it's not, like I said, it's not something I've thought about for a while, but a lot of the people attending that session were just starting out. So they were planning, they hadn't quite started yet, or they were kind of into book one, but they were starting to think about how to write, their series as a whole. And I think the main message that came across from that was this idea of having an exit point when you write a series, which is making sure that you've got a plan to kind of tie up your threads at book 3 or 4, but then leaving room for it to extend to 6 books or 10 books or whatever,
is that
if
the
you
best
want it to.
best way of doing it? So the series and we should talk about this on the episode, not now. But
We should.
I've got a question. Okay, we'll park that. I've got questions. No, we'll do that. We'll move it on. Okay. Well, look, I made some notes, some takeaway notes, and I've sort of narrowed it down to 3 that I'm going to immediately act on. And some of these, I'm going to say these are things that may be obvious to a lot of people, but I sat there thinking, I've been told this 100 times and never done it. So one thing is making the most of cross-posting. I just don't do that. I'll go to a lot of effort of creating a TikTok post, and I have nothing set up on Instagram Reels. I have nothing set up on YouTube Shorts or Facebook. And it's just stupid. It's a bit like not getting your books translated and for sale in a new market. But you've done the hard bit. The easy bit is then to create the product elsewhere. So get this product out, in this case, a bit of content. So that's something I need to spend an afternoon shaping up those other accounts. But can you, for instance, give me any tips on making that easy? I know you can't cross-post from TikTok, but there are tools you can use once you've got the TikTok out, the post out, to put it into multiple places in one go.
Yeah, there are. So if you link your Instagram account with your Facebook account, that's the easiest thing to do. So you link Instagram to your Facebook page. And there's a feature now, which I didn't even realize. Make sure you've got the most up-to-date version of the TikTok app. And in the settings, I can't remember where it is. You just have to explore. There's a setting somewhere that says remove watermark. So if you remove the watermark, once you've posted on TikTok, you can download it straight away without the watermark, which I guess they introduced this feature to stop people downloading, secondary apps like Snaptic or whatever in order to do that, because that's what you had to do before. And that makes it so easy. I literally post on TikTok, straight away I download it, and then I put it into Instagram, and that cross posts to my Facebook Reels for me. I don't personally use YouTube Shorts, but there are things like Buffer, various things where you can schedule your cross posting. But for me, I just try to make it as easy as possible. And I will say with Instagram, I was shockingly bad at this. And then Adam Beswick and Sasha Black gave me a talking to probably about 2 months ago and said, you've got to do it. Exactly like you just said. It's ridiculous to not be doing it.
Sorry.
I can hear a noise. What is that?
Well, I'm playing with TikTok looking for that setting. A photographer from F1 started talking to me.
What am I listening to? And so I started doing it about 2 months ago. Instagram is much slower than TikTok. So I had to consistently cross post for about 2 months on Instagram. And now my reels are really starting to get some traction. So just kind of switch off from it. Don't think about it too much. Just do it. And I have my captions and hashtags saved in a note on my phone. So I use the same ones all the time. It's the blurb of the book and I list the tropes and then I've got my hashtags at the bottom. So every time I just copy that onto Instagram and go.
It's a bit of patience needed. As with everything in our world, I always say that with marketing and you start a new venture, just do it for months on end before you start looking for results, and because it always takes a while for these things to get sort of
and it becomes
momentum.
second nature. Like now it doesn't feel like a chore at all because I'm just so used to doing it. Just TikTok, download, put on to Instagram, copy and paste the caption, job done.
Copy and paste the caption. Oh yeah, the not the caption,
My
the
notes.
comments.
Yeah.
They're kind of
Yeah.
So captions are a different thing, aren't they? But yes, do you burn captions on somehow? Does each to like
it does. I think it does that automatically
auto
now.
generates them? Yeah. They'll get better, won't they? Okay, so that was one of my takeaways. So cross-posting. The other thing is YouTube audiobooks. So I took my audiobooks out of exclusive a couple of years ago, maybe a year and a half ago, something like that, because I wanted to put them onto Spotify. I think my earnings have been slightly up since I did that, but not dramatically. It's not made a huge difference. I had a good start on Spotify. It seems to have leveled off a little bit. I had a really good end of last year, weirdly. So suddenly doing like £100 a month, which is, 2 books was very good. So I am thinking about uploading my audiobooks in their entirety to YouTube on a monetized account and allowing people to watch it for free, but I get paid with advertisement money. But as you get more books, it gets people into your author name as well. So it's a kind of shop window. Is this something you've done or played with?
I can't because I have spicy books.
They got filth. I forgot. Well, there's no filth in my books.
But I know that Adam Beswick has done this and is having a lot of success with it. So I'm sure if you ping him a note, he will go through it with you. But yeah, I know quite a lot of authors who are doing it. I can't remember what he said his earnings are from it, but if you have a word, I'm sure I'll go through it with you. But I know a lot of people who, it's just another way to get your books out there. Because I don't think it's the case that people will not listen to it on Spotify or Audible if they're listening to it on YouTube. I think people kind of choose their platform where they like to listen to these things. But yeah, a tip I heard from somebody was to have just some sort of static image or even like an AI image that kind of just one of those videos that loops just so they have something to look at while they're doing it. But it's not something I can do because of the spice.
I'll have no problem doing the image side of things. That's my wheelhouse. But I will look into that. There's no reason not just to try it for a bit.
Exactly.
And if I want to take it down, if I think it's harvesting sales and listens from streams from Spotify, etc. Somebody somewhere has done the figures on the kind of streaming per stream price.
Yeah, I was going to say there must be some numbers somewhere.
But they're also different audiences.
Yes, I think so. I think people kind of pick their platform and then that's what they tend to then look for audiobooks on that platform rather than they're searching for that particular audiobook and then deciding where to listen to it.
Yeah. And of course, I've got my email list. I can blast them, start off with them. It's there. Okay. So the last point, sort of takeaways that I wrote down, I need to act on is a slightly more generic one, but it was a good point, sort of focusing the mind a little bit on marketing. And I can't remember whether it was Celeste Barkley or Tony Lee, because they both did not dissimilar talks. But one of the two of them, I think probably Celeste, said, what is the USP of your book? What are the things that people like about your books that you'll perhaps see commented in the reviews or people say to you in emails and so on? And whatever that is, whatever you've identified, your marketing should be based around that, because that's proof. It's credible proof of what people get out of your books. And it sounds like a weird thing. So you think, well, that's a really obvious thing to say, but people don't come to you and say it was a page-turning thriller, which I really love, which is the type of language that we do use for advertising. What they say to me is, in my case, they say to me, it was very authentic about RAF life in the 60s. And, I were you in the Air Force? Because it felt like you were in the bar in the 1970s when I was there in Old Men. So that I get that comment quite a lot, which people like about it. Never really occurred to me to make that front and center of my marketing language, to really double down on the audience that are going to really appreciate the book. So it's a really, like all these good ideas, it seems obvious once you say it out loud, but actually wasn't obvious to me. And so that's, I think, going to influence my marketing language going forward.
Yeah, I think so. And it's something that I've tried to do for a while especially with TikTok comments and things like that, if I get people commenting, is to pay attention to the language that they're using to describe your book, because they don't want you to come across as too salesy when you're,
No.
in your book ads or even your blurbs. If you phrase things in a way that they are used to speaking and reading, and the way that they talk when they're recommending books to each other as readers, rather than us telling them as the author, this is what you are going to experience in this book, then I think it's just going to hit a nerve a little bit more. So I tend to say things like spice with a plot, because most people mention the fact that it's really spicy, but it also has a plot, and try to capitalize on, the nicknames that they use for the guys, or the fact that they say, oh my god, the cliffhangers had me up at 2 a.m., that kind of thing. Pay attention to patterns and the things that they're picking out that make you special. And that kind of ties on to what I took from Celeste's talk, actually, which was, it was fantastic. It was focused on branding and how to really think about your author brand and understand your audience, and looking at, consumers. But it's been a long time since I've really gone back and thought about what my brand is. I'm not sure that I ever really have thought about what is the thing that makes me different. So what is the thing that make my books and my voice different from the others? What is the guaranteed kind of Cara Clare experience, no matter which one of my books you read? So I took some of my notes, actually, and I told Claude, I want you to be a branding expert, and you've worked with authors for the last 20 years, helping them to craft their author brands. And I want you to ask me a series of questions to help me iron out my author brand. And I spent about maybe an hour or two doing this with Claude, actually uploaded 2 of my manuscripts in the end and asked it to help me in a separate window, asked it to help me pull out things that were common. And then I used that to help answer the branding questions. And it really came out with the fact that there is spice, but the spice progresses the plot. I have strong female characters in all my books. Like, they don't have men saving them. So it's really like, there is love and there is spice, but it's also about finding your power and your freedom. And it gave me some really great kind of ideas for marketing and the kind of messaging that I need to create around my brand if I'm going to attract the right readers who want that, which ties in with everything that we've been saying about the book package and things. But I suppose this is extending it slightly to think about you as an author and how you package yourself, and how you, create your brand and what you're trying to say to people, as well as what your covers and everything else say.
Yeah, no, I really like that. So I think I'll approach it methodically, and perhaps in my case, write down some keywords like authentic and realistic, etc. And just make sure, in the same way that I normally do this the other way around, where I have, this is my subgenre, techno thriller, historical military thriller. What are the keywords? And then make sure I've got them in my blurbs. You read my blurbs, there should be these keywords in there. It's just modifying what those keywords are, just changing the accent slightly to make it a more personalized brand base. I mean, Isabel Knight was at the conference as well, and Isabel's brilliant on your personal brand, and reminds us as authors who like to hide behind their books a bit, which is, very common in the writing world, that actually people are buying you as much as they're buying your books. They may buy the first one as a punt, but normally because they like the look of your name and who you are or whatever, there's some connection. And then as they go on, they become more and more interested in you and more loyal to you. And therefore, your story is as important as the story you're writing in the book, which, again, makes authors uncomfortable. But Isabel talks about how you can think about what your story is without it being over personal if you don't want it to be, and so on. But it's an important part of, that's littering your marketing with this language that you've worked out that comes from a place of why people like you and will like your books, I think.
Yeah, I agree. And that ties in actually to the talk that you missed, but everyone was raving about it. It was very last minute. An author called Steve Aitchison, I think is how you pronounce his surname. And he wasn't supposed to be talking at the conference. And he said himself, he's an introvert. He was out of his comfort zone just going to the conference in the first place. And then he got into a conversation with Tony Lee and sort of mentioned the success that he'd had with this particular marketing method. And Tony went, you should be doing a talk, introduced him to Siobhan. And then the next thing, the poor guy is standing in to do a talk and had, 24 hours to put together a PowerPoint or something. And those of us who were in that room came out going, that was the best talk that we've been to the whole time. It's brilliant.
Second best.
Sorry, second. Oh, I didn't go to yours.
Oh, no, you didn't. No, of course, yeah. Get that knife out.
Seen it before. I listened to him talk so much.
No, I'm really sorry I missed this talk. It sounded
Yeah,
extraordinary.
it was great. And it was great because it's so simple, so understated. So his background isn't in writing, but he kind of took his knowledge from other industries that he's worked in and marketing to develop this method. And he's basically made £200,000 in the last, I think, 18 months, maybe a year, with just one Facebook ad, 1 2-minute video. Set it up, let it go, and that same ad is still making him money. And it is 2 minutes of him, and you can actually find this, and he showed us how to do this, and it's something I'd sort of forgotten about. If you go to the meta ad library, which you can find just by googling it, and look for his author page, you can do this with any author, you can see the ads that they're running.
Yeah, it's very useful
So
to have a look at what ads people are running.
so you can actually see the example of this video if you do that. And it's 2 minutes of him talking really vulnerably about writing the books. And he kind of holds his book up and goes, it took me 27 years to write the first book, but then I wrote the next however many books, 6 books, I think, in about 18 months. And then he talks a bit about how, he had no confidence and that sort of thing, and then mentions how successful they were. So it was just kind of, I think as well, because we've been talking so much about trying to be more human and reach readers in that way, and like we were just saying about you and your brand and that kind of stuff, it was really eye-opening for a lot of us. And also, obviously, we all love the idea of, I could create one video and then just leave it and never have to
Yeah,
keep
that's very
tweaking it
tempting.
and doing all sorts of different things. And so I tried it, and bless him, he was amazing. Like, I actually kind of very briefly in the bar, like, said, I'm going to try this. And he said, well, do you have a story? And I said, wow, writing spicy books got me out of a miserable marriage and kind of saved my life. And he was like, there you go, there's your hooks. After the conference, actually, he messaged me and said, I've been thinking about some ideas, and sent me some ideas for hooks that I could use. So I sat down and I didn't plan it, recorded a 2-minute video, which again, if you search Cara Clare, you can see the example on the meta ads library, because I'm now running it as an ad, and started with that and said, I had no idea that writing spicy books would save my life. Talked about how my female main character, kind of her journey mirrors mine. Made sure to get in there a couple of the things we were talking about how, strong female characters is part of my brand. There's all the spice and the hot guys, and she falls in love, but also it's this empowering story. Made sure to mention, if you want to check it out, now it's got 7,000 reviews on Goodreads, and people have, given me great feedback. If you want to check it out, I hope you love it. The main character as much as I do. And, so far it's already got the lowest CPC that I've had.
Wow, already seeing
Running an
results.
ad. It's been 24 hours. I've had, I think, 2 comments of people saying, I've just downloaded the book because of watching this reel. And my ranks, I'm doing it in the UK, my rank has gone from something like, because I don't really push much to the UK, 30,000. It's now sitting at 7,000 in the UK store. And that's only 24 hours on a £15 spend. And because it's super wide targeting as well, it's literally just women between the ages of 18 and 65. I anticipate those results going up. So I'm trying to be patient, because as the AI learns who is clicking and who's responding to it, it's going to learn more. And it's a tactic that I think I'm even going to use it going a little bit further with Instagram reels, and start doing a few more of those. Like, why is this spicy scene so good? It's great because it's hot, but also here's the emotional stuff that's in it. And, just try that as a thing to break through and start connecting to people a little bit more, because my marketing and everything has changed. TikTok has felt very stagnant. Instagram has felt very stagnant since all the stuff that went on in January. And I think this might be something that a lot of us could actually do to start making those relationships with readers.
And that their answer is why you go to conferences, because you come away with stuff like that, and you need it in your author career. You need to keep moving forward, keep being dynamic. You can't sit at your desk at home all day reading the odd blog post thinking things are going to change. It's things happen,
and it's always
in
unexpected.
Person. Yeah,
it's always unexpected, and it's always, even if you'd watch that afterwards, by going to the conference, I was able to speak to Steve in the bar and say, I really enjoyed that talk, and have that little chat where he then helped me and recommended some stuff. And those are the things that, it's networking, but that makes it sound quite cynical. But it is making those connections, having those little soundbite conversations with people, and they'll say something and you'll go, oh my God, that's genius. Or I really should have done that, like you with your cross posting. Like, I really should be doing that.
Yeah.
And there is also the magic, I think. I forget because it's been a while since this is kind of the start of the conference season starting again. You kind of forget how energized you are when you leave, and that little magic thing that happens when you put a bunch of creative people in a building together.
Yeah.
and just like the energy, and you leave feeling so like motivated and like you've been with family for a few days.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. That was definitely well worth it for itself. And on the conference, I should give a plug to the self-publishing show, which is probably the next one up on the
Yes, it is
circuit,
the next one in the agenda, I think.
which is going to be in June 25th, 26th. Or actually, the 26th is now sold out. 25th, and we've made it £99, as cheap and easy as possible, people to get there and enjoy the day. And hopefully, we'll have knocking on 1,000 authors in the room. We know we've got some of the biggest names in the true, sort of service side of the sector going to be there as well, and really good lineup. So looking forward to it. Yeah, and you can
a lot of people as we were leaving were all going, "Are you going to be in London? Are you going to be in London?" So really looking forward to it, and the weather will be great as well.
It's always great.
And we should say, actually, it was really lovely to meet some listeners. It was really nice because it's the first thing that we've done.
Kay was
together.
there.
Yes, Kay, who should, if I'm correct, be listening to this in her car on her way swimming. So good luck, Kay.
So
and there was also one lady.
I thought you said to me, Kay, listen to us swimming, because I thought she must have those fancy. I meant to ask her, those fancy headphones that you can wear swimming.
No, I think she listens on the way to the swimming pool. That was the.
Or you swim with your tape recorder held out the water. With one arm.
And then everyone has to listen. Yeah. I think when we got there, Siobhan said it was very weird because she'd just been listening. She picked us up from the airport and had just been listening in her car. And then we got in and she was like, "This is weird. We're getting you in surround sound."
We're bickering in the back.
I just want to say, actually, there was one lady who I promised I would speak to. I don't know her name. She was wearing a green top, and I was supposed to meet her at 11 o'clock in the foyer to have a little chat after the series panel. And we just missed each other. And then I was preparing for our podcast. So if that's you, feel free to reach out, because it wasn't purposeful. I didn't mean to miss you. But yeah, it was lovely to meet people who enjoyed the show. They've been listening to the show, to get positive feedback, and to have people saying it feels like I'm with my mates. It feels like I'm having that conversation with my co-workers, or I've popped into the pub.
And I think it was a small conference. It was 100. I think there's a capacity for 250, maybe something like that. So next year, it wouldn't surprise me if it sells out, because I think nobody knew much about it this year. But like I said at the beginning, there's a bit of FOMO from our friends who saw the picture and thought, "Oh, I should have gone." And I think people hopefully will go next year. But there'll be more. I mean, there were probably 7 or 8 listeners to the podcast there. There'll be more than that next year. There'll be more than that in London. So you can go to these conferences already with a little tribe there waiting for you. So you don't have to be too nervous about, who am I going to speak to? Can I make friends? Maybe we should resurrect our Facebook group. We've got our Discord channel, but I think we should so what did I just say? Resurrect. I said it the first time. Couldn't say it the second time. Resurrect
we should
our
actually.
Facebook group.
Yeah,
and
we had a look of people trying to join Facebook, because I think there are still people who prefer it as a platform. So
yeah, it works in a different way. The Facebook group is probably a better way of posting, like, for instance, who's going to the show and where should we meet, what pub should we meet in the night before, etc. So we'll get all that going.
And we should say we've sold out the retreat. We sold our last retreat space.
We have.
So we're now fully booked, which is very exciting.
Yeah, we are full up now. Somebody at the conference, Kelly at the conference, said, "I want to go to the retreat."
And this is another thing. I met Kelly 2 years ago at SPS, and we had a really influential conversation, and I went away and I lost, I think we exchanged numbers, and I lost the piece of paper with her name.
So you miss meetings, you lose numbers.
I know, but then I met her again in Ireland and I was like, "Oh my God."
There you are.
And now she's coming to the retreat, so that's awesome.
Yeah, and also Celeste Barkley's coming to the retreat, who
I know,
we
so
talked
excited.
about. So Celeste was potentially the one who taught me about the, with the whole discussion we had just now about using your brand front and center. What's your USP? How do you get that into your marketing? So she'll be at the retreat. So I dare say she'll be happy to talk about that at some point around the table when we're having a chat. So yes. So that's sold out. The workshop sold out. It's the main conference day now. The only tickets left are your chance to hook up with us in the summer, not hook up in the American sense. Get together. I guess is the Americans'
Yes.
word version of that. Yeah, so looking forward to it. I mean, the conference season's underway, and I've got Aruba next month, which is the
You
mastermind
have.
run by Craig, which is kind of a higher level. I'm there really because I built the publishing company, which is how I can get to the 7-figure claim, not my own books,
My
which are
FOMO for
5
that is
figures.
so bad.
Yeah, sorry about that.
So
It's a long way
bad.
to go though. I have to go via Miami and sleep overnight in Miami to get there. I
Yeah.
mean, there is a direct flight from Holland, but it's very expensive.
Are we going to record while you're there, or are we going to record before you go?
It'd be quite fun to record while I'm there, wouldn't it?
Would, but I don't know if I can handle it if I can see like a beach in the background or something.
If I've got a balcony looking I mean, it's 28 miles, 28 miles off the coast of Venezuela. It's 12 degrees north. So it's very close to the equator. It's going to be lovely. In fact, it's the same.
Well,
I
anyway.
noticed, because I'm geeky like this about geography, as I looked up the latitude of Koh Samui, which is where we're probably going to go in Thailand when we go in December, at least for some of the time. And that's almost exactly the same latitude as Aruba. It's 12:30.
You really are geeky. I didn't realise quite how much until this trip.
Do you ever pay attention to latitude and longitude? Does it ever occur to you?
It wouldn't even occur to me, James.
I don't mean that sounded like a patronising. Do you ever pay attention? But I'm curious. But, the equator...
No, Dad, I don't.
The equator's at 0. So I find it absolutely fascinating that, for instance, you probably don't know where...
If anyone wants to turn off with it...
We're 52.
Content's finished.
Degrees north here, and we're warm. It's a temperate climate, right? We have a reasonable summer, hopefully it doesn't rain too much. It doesn't get really cold in the winter. But if you go, my kids, that -25 stuff, they're the same latitude as us, the same point around the Earth, but just in the middle of a landmass and away from the way that the hot air circulates and the Gulf Stream circulates. So I find that all very interesting.
My brain is hurting.
Because there's no sex in it. You're not interested.
No.
No spice and weather. There's got to be some Weatherman spicy books out there somewhere.
If there's not, I feel like we just hit on a new subgenre right then.
Yeah, ice hockey's had its day. It's now funny how ice hockey romance was a thing and what's her name? Maria Lewis, brilliant Maria Lewis in New Orleans. I remember her first books were ice hockey romance. And
it's
then
still quite
and then
big,
when it
actually.
suddenly became big, because somebody had a big trad hit with a series, didn't they? Who was that?
Yeah, well, Emily Rath writes reverse harem ice hockey stuff, and then there is
there's someone been in the Sunday Times
Icebreaker,
charts.
Heartbreaker, something like that, which I think was self-published and then got a trad deal.
Right.
Yeah, well,
it looks very indie in its.
I'm sure it was indie first, and then it got snapped up because it was so popular.
Just on that, there's a discussion to be had one day about the kind of where we started this show today. We're talking about the attitude towards self-publishing and from traditional publishing, and you and I have noticed this trend of traditional publishing adopting self-publishing kind of tropes and so on. But in the books themselves, there is this indie feel. I can look at a book cover and not see it because of its quality, it's indie, but I can see it kind of speaks to its readers by being quite nichey, and I know that's indie. When I'm browsing, and that's different from trad, but that is crossing over a little bit at the moment. But I picked up because I'm writing spy espionage now. I'm reading it, and I was handed this book by a friend about a year ago. Stella, not Stella Creasy, she's a Labour politician. Stella Rimington, who was the first female head of MI5 in the UK, which is our FBI, and went on to write spy books, published by Random House or someone, I can't remember who, one of the big trads. And I kind of put off reading it because I'm writing indie. I like the kind of very genre. So I started reading it about 2 weeks ago. It's absolutely bloody brilliant, and it's completely indie. I can only imagine the traditional publishing people had the head of MI5 who'd been to Oxbridge and everything on their books, and then would have read that book and thought, this is a bit tawdry. This is not this is not the literary book we were hoping for, and it's absolutely page-turningly brilliant. The only thing is she does use long words in there occasionally, which I would, honestly, if I knew her as a friend, I'd say, just drop those words that you have to look up the meaning for. Yeah, because it kind of stops you in your tracks. It's a little bit, it might be completely natural to her. She's obviously a brilliant, bright woman. To become head of MI5 is incredible. So it's natural to her, but the vocabulary, I think, keep the vocabulary simple. Don't let it get in the way of the story.
Yeah.
But that's the only thing I'd say about it. Otherwise, this could be written by one of our mates in indie publishing. And I don't know what she's doing now, but she needs to wake up and understand that self-publishing is where she should be. Because, she should talk to us at Vinci Books, and we'll do an indie kind of deal with her. But so I'm absolutely loving it, and it's a series. Funny enough, it's slightly weirdly, it's a young female MI5 officer, very very similar to what I'm writing. And the first like 3 chapters, I'm thinking, God, this is like basically my story. I think there's a limited number of ways you can start.
Speaking of which, should we end on your confession, James Black?
What was my confession? I mean, I confessed to a lot of things.
That you're rewriting.
Yes. Did I not mention this on the last podcast?
I don't think you've mentioned it on the show. No, you told me. I think you told me at the airport. I arrived it was something ridiculous, like 6 o'clock in the morning. I was so tired. I hadn't even had a coffee. And James went like, I've got some news. And I was like, okay. And he went, I'm rewriting my book. And I was like, I have not had enough coffee to have this conversation.
I remember you saying that. You've told me not to do it. Focus on the new book. Don't go back.
But having now talked about it, I agree that you're doing what you need to do.
It's like an itch I need to scratch, because I think I got the character arc wrong. And I did believe, you are right, commercially and for my career, it should be the next book. I kind of woke up one morning and I just thought, bugger it, I need to write this. I need to rewrite this book. There's no point in me thinking in the back of my mind every day. It pops up in the front of my head. Oh, I would really like to just rewrite it. You want to do it, James? You only live once. Rewrite this book. It's not a major rewrite. It's a character rewrite. But as I was writing it, so there is a twist. It's a bit of a spoiler alert. There's a twist in this book that one of the American pilots, turns out to have been a deep Russian plant, had been there for a long time, which the Soviet Union 100% did in the 1940s, 50s and 60s. They'd have people speaking in southern accents, getting into anywhere they could. This guy got further than he could possibly imagine, and at the worst possible time, stole a very important bit of equipment. Now, in the book, when I started rewriting it, I don't even know when I had this idea, literally probably as I was rewriting it, I'm interspersing the early chapters with this guy 10 years before as a young kid becoming a test pilot as a completely different character. And the reader will think at some point they're going to meet each other, my main character and this main character, not realize that his best friend is the same guy as this 10 years later, the same name. So I think it's a really clever
I hate to
device.
say it, but it is really good.
Yeah. So I'm doing that. I'm loving doing it. Last night I redesigned the cover, which I'll throw up on here.
You redesigned the cover yourself?
Yeah, I redid it myself. I mean, I'll put it up here so people can have a look at it. You can tell me whether you think it's good or not. I mean, I think I've learned enough from Stuart. He's taught a lot to me in doing the covers. I would 100% happily have Stuart do it again, and maybe I will. But I'm also to the point now where I think with the technology around, I can probably do, especially for a rewritten book, because I kind of know, I know this book inside out. I know I've got an existing cover, and it's a variation. Not a variation of Stuart's design, but it's obviously the same title and stuff. Maybe with a new book, I go to Stuart and say, what do you think? And I probably will do with him, because our spy cover is going to be different. But yeah, I've done my new cover. I'm going to do the paperback cover today, just because working on the assets of it motivates me to, keep going doing the writing.
Well, I'm also rewriting, about to go into a rewrite.
Hypocrite.
Well, I think I told you, I'm sure I said, my Spicy Jungle Book retelling, which was going to be a trilogy. And this is to do with brand, right? Because when I first wrote it, I didn't really want it to be reverse harem, because the connection between Shere Khan, who's a tiger shifter, and Gliana, who is the princess, was so strong. I really didn't feel like it was a reverse harem book, but everybody was saying to me, reverse harem's your brand. You've got to make it reverse harem. So I did, and it didn't work. It didn't land. And I knew it. I wasn't happy with the reviews. I mean, it was fine. I was like 4.1 average, but I wasn't happy with those books. And I also think that it can be wrapped, the storyline can be wrapped up with maybe another 30,000. So I'm merging them into one. I'm just getting rid of that why choose element. That's all I'm doing, and the reverse harem element. But that's a really interesting thing, because I thought that was my brand.
Yeah.
But it's not.
It didn't suit the story.
The fact that it's reverse harem isn't my brand, and I don't want that to have to be in every book that I write if it doesn't feel natural for the characters. My brand is spice, but also the powerful female characters and the kind of deep emotional connections that they make with the love interest. It doesn't have to be reverse harem.
That kind of sub-trope, which I would say reverse harem is a sub-trope within the genre. Do readers, they might seek it out, but are they slavishly devoted to it? Like they'll be disappointed if they read a book and it's not there, or they just won't pick up a book if they don't think it's in there?
Some are, but I think we're moving past that slightly. I think we are moving past it to it being more about the the story itself and the characters that they're more interested in, and whether the spice is good and whether the romance is good. I'm sure there will be people who are in the mood for a reverse harem, but I don't think it's the case that people won't read another Cara Clare book if it's not reverse harem.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
Okay, look, we're coming up to 56 minutes of recording.
We'll stop.
Kay has driven past the swimming pool and is now
She's done
driving.
laps around the cliffs of whatever they were that we went to.
She's still there?
I don't know. No, she's not. She's not Irish, is she?
No, she's not Irish. I don't think
No.
she's still there. She's been driven there. She's driving around the ring road in Worcester, wherever she lives. Okay, all right. Good chat. Good chat. Thanks very
Good
much.
chat. Yeah.
It's like therapy, this, isn't it?
It is, yeah. Well, for us, people listening possibly need therapy afterwards.
Yeah, might be trauma for them. Okay, all right. Thank you very much indeed, Cara Clare. We'll be back
Thank you.
next week. We'll have to record. We'll have to think about what we're going to do with the Aruba break at some point. We might batch. I'll see if I can polish up the audio on the Ireland conference ones.
Okay.
There's a lot of whizzy audio tools around these days, and I'll see if one of them can lift out. Like, it was basically the iPad recording it.
Okay.
But we'll
I have
see.
faith in you.
We'll try. All right. Thank you very
All right,
much.
see
See
you
you next
soon.
week. Bye.
Bye.
Sign up for episode alerts at indiewritersclub.com. Come and chat with us at our exclusive Discord server at indiewritersclub.com/discord. Or join our Facebook group at indiewritersclub.com/Facebook. And you can support the podcast at indiewritersclub.com/support. And don't forget to share your weekly word counts, because no matter what you've achieved this week, we're here to cheer you on. Thank you for being part of the Indie Writers Club.
The Indie Writers Club was brought to you by Publish Drive. With one click, self-publish your ebooks, audiobooks and print books to thousands of stores and libraries worldwide. And now you can start for free forever. Publish Drive's new free plan lets you publish your first ebook absolutely free. No subscription fees, no commissions, keep 100% of the royalties. Get your titles online in just a few minutes at publishdrive.com.